All right, everyone. Welcome to the Real Estate Game Changer Show. I'm your host, Mike McKay, and each and every week we do this show with people who are changing the game of real estate all over the country. Personally, I'm based in the Jacksonville, Florida market, and we still are actively buying in Jacksonville. So if anyone listening runs into any deals down here, be happy to look at those or help you out in any way. If you're thinking about getting into the Jacksonville real estate market, don't hesitate to reach out. So this week on our show, we have Naaman Taylor, and he is a nationwide virtual wholesaler who also flips houses in the Fort Worth, Texas area. So Naaman, welcome to the show.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me. This is going to be awesome. Let's get to it. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share my story on here and talk to your audience and over deliver to your platform, brother. So I'm excited to be here.
For sure, man. Yeah, let's dive in. So talk about a little bit how you got started in the real estate business.
Man, thanks again, dude. Like I love sharing my story because I think it's very impactful for a lot of people. The beginning part of my journey started unlike everybody else's. I didn't like read Rich Dad Poor Dad and then like just discover real estate. I was living in Germany about 3 years ago when I was in active duty army, and everything shut down. So I was in my barracks room trying to figure out like what was going on. It was all very slow. Everything was a little scared. So I started to educate myself on real estate. I started watching YouTube videos from like Bigger Pockets, anything I can get my hands on. And for about 3 months, I just spent a ton of time listening to episodes, educating myself, understanding the concepts because I didn't have any sort of investing background, any kind of sales background. I had bought a couple houses with my VA loan, but not in the sense where I was like looking to flip them, where I was looking to wholesale them, where I was looking to rent them out and make a bunch of dough. It was really just I needed somewhere to live, so I bought a house like most people. So it started 5,000 miles away, where I did my first burr property here in Fort Worth, Texas, where I am now. When I was living in Germany, so after 200 plus episodes in 3 months, I pulled the trigger on my first deal.
Nice. So you did that remotely. You were still in Germany.
Correct. Yeah, we did it all virtually. I interviewed people here in Fort Worth. I hired like a mentor that cost me like $100 an hour. I talk to him still to this day, and I always thank him because it's so crazy that at the time I thought $100 an hour was such an expense to pay to get educated because I didn't have an investment background. I didn't have like any like high level skills. I was just a soldier, so I hadn't paid for any real education yet. I thought college was basically the only way to learn how to do anything. I didn't realize about these mentorships and masterminds from people. This was all like brand new to me back then. So I hired this guy for $100 and I was like, this is a lot of money. Give somebody for an hour. I was like, this guy's not a doctor. Like, what the heck? Right. But that $100 ended up changing my life, man. Like I when you don't know anything about real estate or any mentorships or anything like that, all you know is how much a dollar is valued to you. You don't really understand the value of money to other people or what an education actually costs. Right now, I pay $100,000 a year in education and masterminds and taking courses and classes because I'm like, this is how you get ahead. Right. So at the time in my barracks room in Germany, paying that $100 felt like so much money. And that was, one of the ways that I was able to figure out how to burr houses virtually 5,000 miles away in another country.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you did your first one, did it totally remotely. What happened then?
Yeah, I was able to tap into my mentor's network because it's so crazy, $100. I was able to tap into contractors, the wholesalers he was working with, the banks he was working with, like everything, and it was truly a blessing. And that's why I'm such a go-giver myself these days, because I was like, what one man did for me a few years ago, I want to do for more people. So like we'll coach people for free. We'll, connect people that I know need help with one another because you're just one person away from completely changing the trajectory of your life. Right. So, virtual wholesaling was an easy not easy, was a simple thing for me to wrap my mind around because I had virtually bird properties first, right? So a lot of people have a hard time doing things virtually. My
Hmm.
first 15 deals were all done from my barracks room in Germany.
Okay. So you do that first quarter, you tap into his network, which obviously was huge value, right?
Correct.
Uh,
Yeah.
did you jump into wholesaling right after that, or was there a step in between, or a
No,
lot of
here
steps?
a lot of steps, man. A lot of steps because the market was very different in 2020.
Hmm.
So I was buying houses, $60,000, $70,000 in Fort Worth. Now, though, if you find a house for 60, 70,000 now, I mean, you've just got a steal of a deal, right? Like
Hmm.
you're rolling in the dough. You can get a contract at 60K.
Hmm.
So, back then, I didn't even know what wholesaling was, to be honest with you. I didn't know he was connecting me with wholesalers. I was like, I don't know, these are the guys that have the houses that I fix. This is how ignorant I was to the rest of real estate. I only knew what I knew, what I learned from Bigger Pockets. They don't promote wholesaling, right? Like at all. It's all about, everything else in real estate.
Hmm.
So when I was buying houses from wholesalers, I didn't even realize who they were. I was just like, these are the guys that got the bad houses. This company, I was buying from like New Western at the beginning. So I was like, hey, this company just has like the crappy houses. Cool. And I was making money on these deals and burn them out. And I was leaving maybe a couple $1,000s in each house. And some of them I wasn't leaving any money in. And it was working out really well to the point where I called all my friends and I was like, guys, I figured something out. You guys should all do this too. And a few of them did. And those friends that did those deals with me in the beginning, we've made a couple $100,000 together now, just from
Hmm.
appreciation or selling houses, or we invest together now. And some of my friends said no. And, they don't, and they still don't own real estate. Right. But that was all part of my journey because I was able to, those were the steps in between my first burr and then getting into wholesaling because the market started to go bananas and
Hmm.
I couldn't get any more good deals from the guys with the houses. Right? I was like, they kept sending the deals, and I run my calculator, my math, my bigger pocket math, and I'm like, these deals suck. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I only done like 10, 15 deals, and I'm like, am I doing this wrong? How is everybody else still doing business? I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And so I ended up wanting to get into acquisitions because of that reason alone.
Hmm.
I went backwards, the backwards way most people go. Most people start as they think like wholesaling is like the bottom way of starting into real estate, and
Hmm.
truly, it's probably the best way to be in real estate because you can, if you have an acquisitions company and you can actually close deals, man, you're unstoppable because now you can either wholesale it, flip it, or keep it for yourself. Right? I don't
Yeah.
have to rely on bad wholesalers to send me deals or realtors to send me deals. Right, I can always count on my own acquisitions to find my own houses. So we started, training in wholesaling, and that's how that was my first trip to Jack's, was to go walk around with Cash Geeks and figure out what wholesaling really was because I was trying to do it and I was terrible at it because I had no
Hmm.
education. I had watched
Hmm.
200 episodes on burring so I could burr. I
Yeah.
watched 0 episodes of how to wholesale, and I thought I was going to figure out how to wholesale.
Yeah.
So I flew down to Jack's Beach, and I did like a weekend learning how to wholesale from Dom G
Hmm.
and Hayden, and it was that again. One like trip changed the trajectory of what I was doing again because now I was able to wholesale nationwide.
Hmm.
So those were the steps in between. We tried to figure it out on our own. Sucked. So went and got some education, then we started doing deals.
Yeah. What was your biggest takeaway from that weekend where you came down to Jacksonville? Like, what changed that allowed
Yeah,
you to?
yeah. The buy box that they gave me, they were like, "Hey, if you go find houses in this in this city at this price, we can JV them and sell them at this price." So we immediately just left and started marketing in the cities that they had hedge fund buyers in, and
Mm,
we did a deal with them within 30 days of leaving.
wow.
But I remember being at the weekend event, and this is how much I didn't know. I didn't even know that I could renegotiate my contracts. I was like,
Mm,
I have this house. It's like it's almost a deal. my buyer wants this much, but the seller wants this, and they're like, dude, just go do a renegotiation. And I'm like, I can ask for less money, or I can ask them to pay less money with the contract that we currently have. And they're like, yeah. That same day, like when we took our break, I went and got $5,000 off, and that gave me a $5,000 fee. Like during the weekend, I was like, well, I
Yeah,
just need that. I just need that addendum paperwork right there. You're like, yeah, boom, done. Like that's
yeah.
the power. I made all my money back that weekend. Like
Wow.
I paid like 4 grand to go to the event, and I made all my money back. Plus, I made some money from going to that weekend. That let me know everything I needed to know about educating myself in real estate, like even paid education. Because to that point, I hadn't paid much money to learn anything.
Mhm. So you're jumping, you're doing wholesaling. Were you mostly focused on that hedge fund model for a long time?
I was until I hired my next mentor. My
Mm,
next mentor that I hired was Kent Clothier,
mhm,
and he taught me the reverse wholesale model
mhm.
and told me that selling the hedge funds was not a great way to do business, and that I should reverse wholesale to people and learn a market and go deep and get relationships with buyers and make sure that they're real cash buyers. So I did all that instead. I still was working with those guys, but we had done maybe like 5 or 6 deals. We made some
Mm,
cash, and I was able to try my own thing, right? But from
mm.
the cash that I made from just doing JVs with them, I hired
Mhm.
another coach. I was able to start building and do my own marketing, right? So that's why I tell people don't frown on JVs because it can be the stepping stone that can help you get to the next level.
Yeah,
Uh, and that's what it did for me. So I hired Kent. Well, we did a personal coaching for like 4 months, and then I built my wholesale business based around his model of reverse wholesaling.
got it. But was is his model trying to go deep in one market? Because you mentioned you're nationwide, so
Yeah, what we did was we tested the theories out between both, but because we still had the connection with Cash Geeks, we still marketed for them and did JV deals with them, but we
mhm,
went really deep into. We started out in Little Rock, so we were just reverse wholesaling houses to his company. Like, hey, let's just figure out how to do as many deals as we can with Kent. He's like, hey, we need to buy houses in Little Rock. We just went super deep into Little Rock. Hey, we need to buy all the houses from all the wholesalers. Here's the criteria, right? We
yeah,
went super deep there. And then I just took the same model and now we've adopted it here in Fort Worth.
got it. Okay, interesting. And you flipped some properties in
Mhm.
Fort Worth as well. When did you start doing that?
So we always flipped houses ever since we bird. It
Mm,
just really depended on when I was burring houses. If I couldn't get most of my money back, right? If I had to leave more than 10 grand in, I was just flipping the house because I didn't want to lose all of the equity that I had or all of the cash that I had to continue the business model. Otherwise,
mhm,
I would have, only been able to do like 4 deals if I had to leave like 10 G's in there every single time. So if I had to leave 10 grand or more in the deal, I just flipped it, made a little bit of dough, and then kept it moving. But if I could leave like 5K in, then I would keep the house because I
mhm.
mean I want to control a $200,000 asset for 5 grand.
Sure,
Like that's what I'm interested in. But it didn't always work out that way because the people I was buying deals from didn't send me deep enough deals sometimes. So
sure.
we flipped some properties ever since when I first started. If you can burr a house, you can flip a house. The only difference is whether you refinance it or just list it. So we've always flipped. Now the volume of flipping increased this year because we want to do way more.
Mm,
Just because there's always retail buyers um, here in Fort Worth. Everybody's not always buying our wholesale deals at where we want to be at. So we're like, hey, let's just flip some more houses.
mm,
Or if they're good flips, we'll burn them, right? We'll keep them.
mhm.
So I like that model a lot. Holding real estate is really awesome at making money. You can't keep up with it when you're super transactional. You can't keep up with appreciation. So
Yeah,
you can make way more money holding houses than you can doing as many deals as possible.
yeah. Talk a little bit about that. So I know a lot of people who, either they wholesale or they flip. It's like kind of they do one or the other. And they always kind of struggle to do something else. So, the guys who are wholesaling, I'm like, how many rentals you got? And they're like one. And I'm like, but you've wholesaled like 300 houses. Like,
Right.
like, how do you decide, okay, this one gets this one, and I know you covered a little bit, maybe a little more in depth. How do you decide we wholesale this one, we flip this one, we're going to burr
Mhm.
this one? Like, what's that process look like?
Dude, that's a great question, Mike. So that's different for every person, right? So I want to be a real estate investor, right? That's
Mhm.
how I started my journey as a real estate investor, not as a wholesaler, right? So the problem is a wholesaler is not actually a real estate investor, and that's why they don't have any rentals. That's why they don't do any flips, right? So they don't actually invest in real estate. They just sell contracts. You can sell
Mhm.
contracts for of anything. It just so happens that it's houses. So you think you're a real estate investor. You're not. That's the difference in why people only wholesale or why they only flip or why they do the burst strategy. There's a lot of guys that are wholesalers that don't even understand anything about houses.
Right.
They have no idea how to flip a house or keep a house or what the requirements are or nothing. They just know if I can look at this number and get it as low as I can, there's a margin in there for me to sell it to the guy that knows about real estate. And there are people that
Mhm.
have been doing this for years that know nothing about real estate investing that are great wholesalers, right?
Mhm.
So the difference is making a decision to not just be in marketing and sales, but to actually be in real estate. And I think
Mhm.
that's where you're going to find the big difference in who does what industry and who does what in what industry.
Yeah. And so your preference is always, if you can, to keep the house if you don't have to leave that money, and you're always going to keep it if it's less than 10 grand, for example.
No, it depends on the season that we're in our business, right? So sometimes we want to stack cash because we want to market more. Sometimes we just this house is just in a place where we want to hold houses. So not every
Mhm.
house that we pick up, even here in Fort Worth, is in an area we want to actually hold in, right? So I originally was buying houses, and I was just buying in Fort Worth. Now I
Mhm.
own like 5 houses that I'm like, I don't even own houses there, but I already have them, right? So, and then we'll pick up a flip, and I'm like, hey, this is where I want to hold that. This
Mhm.
area, this what we picked it up at, and the price that we're going to be all in that makes sense for a bird, or do we
Yeah.
need to flip it just because we're going to have to leave 15 grand in, like.
Right.
So you come up with your own criteria on what it is for you, because some people they got $50 million, they like, well, we'll leave 20 grand in every deal, like they don't
Mhm.
care, they just want to hold the houses, right? So
Yeah.
it's a different strategy for where you are in your business, what season that you're in.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. And obviously, do you have concerns too that you only want to flip a certain amount at a time just because of capacity? I know that's something sometimes a concern that people have, right? They don't want to have five flips going on at once. Is that something that you guys look at, or?
No, not for me. And that's because we have great contractors and we have enough money for holding costs. So it doesn't really worry me to have 10 flips going.
Okay.
I hire GCs to do most of my flipping. So I don't do a lot of like hiring subs and managing work sites and stuff like that. That's how I did it from Germany. I just hired a GC and they do all the work, and then they just let me know in 6 weeks when it's all done. Hey sir, it's all done. We're ready to get paid. Flipping is so easy for me. Like
Yeah.
that's how I like to run my flipping business, right? My wholesale
Mhm.
business is harder than my flipping business, even though it's like you would think it'd be harder. It's not,
Yeah.
just because of the way that I do my transactions in flipping. Hire
Yeah.
GCs, don't manage subs. I pay a little bit more on every rehab, but that's why I like to come through my acquisitions company.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's actually a good topic to dive in a little bit on, because obviously hiring a GC can be a really hands-off thing, but you got to make sure you've hired the right guy with the right expectations. How are you going about making sure that you're hiring the right GC so you can be this hands-off with the process?
Dude, really good question. A lot of people are going to get a lot of value from this. I like references from other people, and I don't pay anybody until the job is done. If you're a real general contractor with a real business, you don't need my money to actually do this job, right?
Mm,
And if you're a real contractor, you just put a lien on my house if I don't pay you, and you'll get the asset, which is more valuable than a check. And any real general contractor and investor knows that. So if I can explain that to them, maybe this is me being good at sales and closing people on this kind of setup, but like that's how I do all my deals. I don't pay anybody till the end. I don't float 30 grand on a $80,000 rehab and then just get ran off on. Right? Like That happens to way too many people. And I think if you set
Yeah.
expectations early, and have them understand your way of thinking, and you hire the right people, they'll do it. They'll do it. I've had $80,000 rehabs done without a penny out of my pocket, and then I pay them when it's all done. It's trust, it's integrity, it's credibility. Right? They're vetting me the same way I'm vetting them.
Hmm. And so you're not doing any draws even throughout the process, like not even halfway through. You're not. Wow. Okay. Are you paying
That
for
saves me
material?
money. Saves me money.
Yeah.
Right? $250 draw from your hard money lender or whatever, like they want to do 3, 4 draws, another grand added to the bottom line, like nah, no draws. Just hey, this is the scope of work. Get the rehab done. When it's all complete, we'll do an inspection and then I'll pay you out.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that's great. I mean, I think a lot of people, I remember I had a conversation with someone here locally 2 weeks ago. We are having dinner and he's like, he's got a great contractor works with him. He's like, you'll find that if you get the right guy, it's actually really easy. It might not be as hard as everyone makes it seem.
Nah. I was lucky though, because I paid that $100. I found the right guys from the first time.
Yeah. Wow. So you get a property, you decide you're going to flip it. Someone on your team walks through, does the scope of work with the contractor. What does that process look like, kind of start to finish? Because I think a
Yeah.
lot of people don't really understand that well, and it'll be helpful to the audience.
I'll explain it from the very beginning, like a deal that we just did,
Mhm.
like what is it called, like a test or I forget what it's called.
Case
When they
study.
show case study, there you go. I'll give it
Good.
like a case study from a house we just did in Houston. So the lead came in on PPC, which is
Mhm.
like pay per click inbound lead. I called the lead. We went back and forth over the phone for like 2 weeks about price and closing timelines, and it took like maybe like 4 or 5 calls to lock this up.
Mhm.
Well, actually, I locked it up on the first call, but then it took more calls to do a renegotiate after we figured out how much work needed to be done and everything like that. So I locked the deal up at like 210,000, and we as a wholesale company. Then we wholesaled the deal to our flip company, made a small assignment fee on it, and then we came in, did the scope of work. Our contractor walked it with our realtor because we didn't need a ton of work. So we had a contractor and realtor there at the same time. So the realtor's like, hey, this needs to be done. This needs to be done in order for us to reach and list the top of the market. So they go
Mhm.
together. I don't even need to be there. This is done in Houston, Texas, by the way. Like
Mhm.
I've only been to Houston like once, and I've never seen this house either. So they go in there, they both go together, do the scope of work, do the this needs to be done to get top of the market. They come back, the contractor gives us the bid price. If it's a good bid and it works our numbers, great. If not, we try to renegotiate the bid with the contractor or get another walkthrough with somebody else. So
Mhm.
numbers come back good. We do the scope of work. It's all done. Realtor comes in. He lists for us because we're going to do volume with him, and he's a friend at a little bit of a discount. So it increases our profit margin again, and
Mhm.
then property goes up. 3 days on market, sold. That was like the last deal that we. I probably should make a case study out of it though, and
Yeah.
have like real numbers and like timelines and stuff up there. But we closed on it in like a week.
Yep.
It didn't take long at all for us to close on the property from start to finish. Though it's probably like a I don't know 10 week project.
It's quick.
I
It's
think we
quick.
made about 35,000 on that flip.
Nice. And that contractor, since you're not from Houston, was he just a referral from your realtor there? Or how'd you find that guy?
Yep, from our realtor. So you work with rock stars. Actually, I
Yeah.
want to stop saying rock stars. Did you see that Super Bowl commercial?
No.
Yeah, so
I didn't
there's
see
a Super Bowl commercial they're making for don't call people rock stars. They're not rock stars. It was like a dude from Sting, on
Oh.
the so but anyway, the realtor he's a really good realtor, man. He's a badass dude. And so he had a good connections there in Houston to get us the connections that we needed for a little bit of paint, a little bit of patch, a little bit of carpet, a couple things here and there that needed to be done. It wasn't a major rehab.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I've always found that like people who are great at what they do tend to know other people who are great at what they do.
Mhm.
Like even great contractors know, great GCs. They know great plumbers, great electricians because they're not going to work with guys who are subpar. They just
Yeah,
go for
I would encourage people to leverage your network more than you think. You might think that you don't have the people, but you're just one person away who has the people, right? And
mm,
people love helping people. Like they just,
hmm
everybody, especially in this industry, because we always need each other in some sort of, I got a deal in Jacks and calling all the guys I know in Jacks who can walk this, who has a dude that can do this. You know what I mean? Like now I know another person in Jacks I can hit up for some help. Like that's how
yeah,
it goes. Anytime I get a deal in a city with another wholesaler that I know, I just try to JV it because I love making money with people. So I go, hey man,
hmm
you guys got buyers out here? Like let's go, let's do this deal together. A lot of the
yeah,
time, you can make more money JVing the deal with somebody that's local than you can on your own getting the assignment fee
yeah,
by yourself. They know who's
yeah,
paying the most money. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and certain people know certain buyers, right? I mean, Cash Geeks has got a great buyers list. I mean, I still even JV some deals with them because they have the best buyers in certain neighborhoods. And I'm like,
Bro,
I'll be down the
100%
road
I
and
could
have
wholesale. I'm sorry. 100% I could wholesale a deal in Jacksonville, but I'm just
yeah.
gonna call. I'm just gonna call you guys and be like, hey, who's the best buyer for this?
Yeah, it's helpful to be deep in the market. So, how many, you say nationwide virtual wholesaling. A lot of people say that and they mean some people do the whole like everywhere PPC thing. Other people are like, oh, we say nationwide, but we really mean, 5 or 10 markets that we're in.
Yeah.
What do you mean when you say nationwide virtual wholesaling?
Yeah, our PC is turned on in 150 cities, so we're in a lot of places. And then when we were heavy cold calling last year, so we were cold
Mhm.
calling basically any city that had over 100,000 population and pulling really small motivated lists and finding contracts that way. So we were playing a little bit of a different game than everybody was last year. This year we've condensed it down a little bit more, get a little more targeted because we want to also flip a lot of houses. So we've narrowed it down to a lot of cities that we just want to flip in. So we're doing a lot in Oklahoma, a lot in Texas, still in Little Rock, a lot in Florida. Like the places where deals are still popping and happening. That's where
Yeah.
we're doing deals at.
So talk about one part you just said there was you were cold calling targeted lists
Mhm.
in those
Yeah,
areas. So you can talk about what you mean by that.
Yeah, my friend RJ Bates teaches nationwide virtual wholesaling, so that's who I learned. Dude, I love just taking everybody's class, right, in course. So I went to his Titanium Crucible in October of 2021,
Okay.
and now he's actually a business partner of mine. So we went to his course in October 2021, learned how to nationwide virtual wholesale because I wanted to learn how to reverse wholesale, how to wholesale nationwide, all
hmm
of it. I wanted all the information so I can make great decisions inside of my company. So what he
Yeah.
teaches is to pull these really small lists through like batch, right? We use batch.
hmm
These little small lists and base it off of the motivation. So we'll pull like 2,500 records to 3,000 records, but it's all based off of a certain criteria of house stacked with motivation like inherited, probate, absentee owner, vacant,
hmm
right? We're just getting different little tags. So we'll
hmm
do that in every city that has over 100,000 population, and it'll pull a list. And if you can get a list of 2,500, that's a good list.
Yeah. Got it. So you're taking that and a very specific type of property and then narrowing it down. Is that just kind of like the property that might sell the best
Yeah,
if you're trying to
an
wholesale, like
absentee
the first
owner
range?
vacant, an absentee owner vacant property that has tax liens on it. They're selling that house. We're looking for motivation, not a specific kind of house. We're searching motivation.
Got it.
So we're calling and we're like, hey, do you want to sell your house? The answer is always yes, because, right, they don't live in the state, it's vacant, and it has some sort of deficiency to it. So
Yeah.
there's some motivation that we've purchased by skip tracing this property.
Yeah. And then there's, it's people talk about how, and maybe it's just a limiting belief that people had, how it's difficult to comp these properties when you're in so many different markets. How have you guys approached that?
Yeah, we'll use realtors, we'll use PropStream, Batch, um, Zillow. Um, what else? I mean, there's so many ways to comp a property. But those are some of the main ways that we do it. And then we use, Dispo, we use Investor Lift. So we have Cartel on mode on Investor Lift, and we can push 7,000 emails at a time. Like, it's really changed the game. Gave me the confidence to go nationwide whenever we were able to get um, Investor Lift, because you can find buyers in any city pretty quick. Versus before, we were reverse wholesaling, because I was like, man, it's hard finding buyers, dude. Like, we're in this one city, and we're sending out like direct mail. We're cold calling, lists. We're talking to all the realtors. Boom, Investor Lift, 7,000 emails. it's like
Right.
it's like, yeah, that changed the game for us. So it gave me the nerve. I'll say it on the podcast. Gave me the nerve to start running 10, 20 grand PPC nationwide, start pulling lists everywhere in the country, because I knew I could just hit a button and dispo to that city.
Yeah, makes sense. And talk a little bit about what your sales process looks like.
Mm.
There's always an interesting. Everyone's got a little bit of a different take on this, but it's always something that's fascinating.
Dude, this is like my favorite thing to talk about right now.
Let's hear it.
So I love phone sales now. I've done it for so long that I've gotten so good at it. So our sales process is intro, setting expectations, urgency, motivation, conditions, roadblocks, setting expectations, the offer.
Mhm.
We take them through that. That's the process you go down. Right, it's
Yeah.
like seven steps. Boom, you're gonna go through this process, and then what we've identified are the most common objections in each part of the process, and we just train like crazy on those.
Mhm. And there's that. Is that something that you're getting a lead? You're trying to do that all in the first call, or what does that process look like?
Yeah, so I train my closers right now to identify towards the end of the call whether or not this is someone that they think will sign today.
Mm.
Everyone will sign today, so we don't always reveal our offer at the end of the phone call, because they're not ready. So if no one's not ready, I'm gonna say, hey, do you mind if we set up another call, so we can go over the offer together? Because usually someone needs to talk to somebody, or they want to talk to their lawyer. So we don't even give them the numbers, right? Because
Hmm.
the pitch and the offer is something that we're gonna go over together, and with all the people that can make a decision. That way, we don't just pitch our offer out there, put our offer out there, and then they go shop it around to the next wholesaler or the
Yeah.
next flipper or whoever, whatever they're doing, right? So if it's really up to the closer to make a decision. Is this someone we can close right now? Then we'll go through our sales process and give them the offer. If not, we'll set expectations for what to expect on the next phone call, and we'll
Hmm.
set a timeline to call them back, whether it's 30 minutes from now or tomorrow, right?
Hmm.
Hey, well, what's a good time when we can get your wife on the phone? Oh, she's working tonight, so tomorrow's gonna be a much better time. What time tomorrow is gonna work best so we can go over the offer together with everybody, right?
Yeah.
That way
Yeah.
we don't the offer, the husband goes talk to the wife. Now we're not able to manage the sellers because they're just
Hmm.
doing their own thing at the kitchen table. Not interested in that at all. Let's all get on
Yeah.
the phone together, or if you feel like you can make a comfortable decision right now, we can go through that.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, your 30-minute conversation with them gets boiled down to, "Hey, so honey, what did they say? How much?"
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, they're
Yeah,
not gonna go get
you
more.
don't, you don't get to hear all the cool stuff and all the things I've dropped on your husband all day to try and get him
Yeah.
to sign. You don't get to be a part of that, and just it could just become a real quick no.
Yeah.
We got to tie the emotion to the sale. So we
Hmm.
lose all control of seller management and emotion when we let them off the phone. Right? We want to get
Yeah.
a decision right now, not
Yeah.
tomorrow. I'll think about it. No, no, no. Don't think about it. Let's talk about it right here.
Yeah.
Let's think about it together right here.
So what is it? How many guys are on your acquisitions team? What does
Yes,
that
we
look
have
like?
4 follow-up specialists and 3 closers right now on the team, and we train every morning together. We go through each person's script. We role play. We train on overcoming objections, and it's a lot of fun because you can clearly tell how good some people are getting just off of
Yeah.
1 or 2 trainings. 1 or 2 trainings is like it's like wow, they got so much better, right? And I train a team of closers. It's a cold call company I train with called REI Call Center, and I train like 30 of their acquisitions people. And it's so cool, right, to train with them and then just correct one person while we're role playing, and then forever he's gonna make great phone calls that way. Like
Hmm.
it's fulfilling, right? So like I'm supposed to come on for an hour. I'm there for 2 because I'm having such a good time training these guys, and they're loving it and they're actually taking it serious. It's the same thing with my guys in the morning. We're supposed to do like an hour, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. They're an hour and a half training, right?
Yeah, sure,
I
yeah.
just love it. I love to train on phone sales and overcoming objections. So if if anybody needs some training or anything like that, I love doing. I'm very passionate about it.
That's cool, man. And then, what's your structure look like? I know you mentioned like some people talk about lead managers, others talk about follow up specialists. Some send it to the acquisitions closer first, other have it filtered. Like, what's your setup with that?
Yeah. So on the I manage most of the acquisition side of our business. So
Okay.
we have different types of leads that come in. We have Facebook, Google, and YouTube leads that all come in.
Okay.
And then we still have follow up specialists that are reaching back to all the data that we've pulled in the last couple years to follow up with those cold call leads to see if they're still interested in selling. Right. So the
Yeah.
4 follow up specialists are just reaching out all day long, looking for leads that they can recreate to pass off to the closers. The closers have 50 dials that they're supposed to make every day off of leads
Mhm.
that have come in through PPC or prior cold call leads that have been passed off to them. In addition to that, we're getting about 10 to 15 leads inbound each day from PPC, whether it be Facebook, Google, or YouTube, that
Mhm.
they have to answer on the spot. So that's kind of how that's set up. And then, yeah, that's how that's set up. Yeah, sure. We'll leave it there.
So when a lead first comes in, it's going to a closer first. It's
Straight
not
to a
going.
closer if it's PPC, because if we can do a 1 call close, let's do
Yeah.
that. Let's just
Yeah.
get them on the phone talking to the person that can contract them, right? But if they
Yeah.
come in from cold calling, then they'll cold call from a cold caller to a follow up specialist to a closer, because that's a different lead. We want to manage that lead a little
Mm.
different. If it's just inbound, you're talking to somebody that's going to contract you immediately.
Yeah. Say that again, because I think that's really a really important distinction that people don't make the differentiation on of how you treat those cold call leads, outbound leads, different than those inbound leads.
Yeah, the way we market and the marketing, cold call is outbound, PPC is inbound. So the cold call leads are getting passed through to get qualified, right?
Mhm.
So they're getting qualified from the cold caller. The main thing that they need to answer is, do you want to sell? Yes. So then we will
Yeah.
get passed over to a follow up specialist to determine, does this property fit? Is it within a certain number of how much we want to pay for a property? And do they actually really want to sell? And are they qualified to sell the property? If
Mhm.
yes, then they get passed along. If no, they get put on a follow up. Right. With an inbound lead, they fill out a form. Within 5 seconds of that form hitting our CRM, they're being dialed, so they don't fill out no more forms. and then and then we talk to them on the
That's
phone about
key.
selling their property. Yeah.
Yeah. That is key because when they're doing PPC,
No,
you don't call, they're on to the next form. So,
there's no loyalty in this game, right? So this is what happens all the time. People go
yeah.
online, they Google how to sell my house fast. My ad will pop up, right? Or someone else's ad will pop up. They'll fill out the form, and then nothing happens.
Hmm.
And they're like, okay, fill out another form. So fill out another form and they hit enter and then nothing happens.
Yeah.
And so now they're just like, they 5 forms in. You wonder why you got to compete with so many people, because your speed to calling back that lead is just awful. As
Yeah.
soon as that thing goes bing, man, I'm on my, if I got something, I'm on it. Right. I'm
Yeah.
like, let's go. They're like, wow, that was fast. They go, hey, we try to be efficient here. So you have 5 to 10 minutes so I can talk to you about your property. Like,
Yeah.
dude, I'm on it. Quick. I'm on it real quick.
It's true though, man. I was doing this earlier. I had a property that my normal insurance broker wasn't able to cover, so I had to just go and look on Google for other options, right? Because my normal people couldn't cover it. And guess what? I called the first guy, didn't answer the phone. Guess what I did? Hung up. I didn't leave a voicemail. Called the next guy, didn't answer the phone. Hung up. Called the next guy. If any of them answered the phone and said, "We'll do the policy," I wasn't actually that sensitive on price today. I was like, I just need a policy.
Mm,
2,000, 2,500, don't really care. Just need it done by the end of the day,
yeah.
right? And like that's the seller, right? They just want it done. And if
Yeah,
you
man.
don't
I've had
answer,
people
you're
fill out that form and they're like, they're ready to sell right this second. And
yeah,
I'm like, whoa, okay, give me 1 second here. 'Cause I'm taking them through a sales process and they're like, we just want to sell it. This is how much we want. And I'm like, oh, no, okay, I don't even got to do all
yeah,
this. What's a good email to send this contract to? Like,
So you guys running your own PPC, or you're doing like those pay per lead type models?
so we have an ad spin with the different companies. So like they run the PPC for us, and we just pay an ad spin, like 10% of ad spin fee to them for running the PPC.
Got it, but it's your PPC. It's not like a pay
Our
per lead.
Yeah, it's our thing. We I do the pay per lead thing with iSpeed to lead,
Okay,
and then we buy home fast. I mean, a couple different models, people that sell leads, sure, but I like to just do the ad spin. It's cheaper because your cost per lead is gonna be like $100. You're getting some junk in there, but when you get the good stuff, on $100 versus like $400 for a Fort Worth lead.
yeah.
Adds up
And you
real
said,
quick.
did you say you have multiple agencies that you're working with on that, or just one?
Multiple, yeah, because we run them on different platforms. So like, just because someone's good at Facebook doesn't mean they're good at Google.
Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. So you got like a Google guy, a Facebook guy, a YouTube guy.
Correct. Who's the expert, and how do we pay the expert to get us the leads that we need?
Talk a little bit about YouTube. You're the first person who's truly brought that up. I know a couple people have used it for remarketing, have talked about it, but no one's really said it's a real lead source for them. So it'd be interesting to hear about that.
Dude, it's hilarious. So YouTube is the third largest search engine in the world behind Google and Google Images. People YouTube how to sell my house fast, and then what happens? An ad pops up, right? People watch TV on YouTube now. People go to the
Yeah,
news for YouTube now. People go to how do I stuff for YouTube now. So all the time you got to watch those ads. You got to at least wait 5 seconds to skip the ad, yes or no, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
you know what I mean? So if you're watching and streaming all these videos, ads are being popped up if you need either you've been retargeted or you typed in how to do this, and so the ad pops up and the lead comes in. I've had so many people be like, "Yeah, I was just on YouTube looking up this, and I filled out your form," and I'm like, "Boom, YouTube, baby." Like she's like, "Yeah, I watch all my news on YouTube, so I was, trying to." Old lady, boom, YouTube. So it's a great search engine for people, and I get a lot of really quality leads from it.
interesting. Yeah, it seems like it's not a crowded space as much either, like some of the other, I know PPC's got a lot of competition, but I don't hear many people talking about YouTube, honestly.
Yeah, for I was quick plug here. My boys over at Lead Zolo, they're the ones that I use, and they're freaking awesome. I love working with those guys. They're amazing. So shout out Lead Zolo. They're the YouTube killers.
Lead Zolo, it's called
Yep.
Zolo.
OLO. I can put you in the text thread with them if you want after this and hook you up.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I may want to talk to him.
Yeah, maybe
Um,
they'll come and do an interview. Like,
that would be cool. Yeah.
yeah,
Talk about Facebook, because a lot of people have tried that. We've tried it with not that much success, and then I know other people who've tried it with a fair amount of success. Like, do you have a different approach than other people, or is it just the fact that you get back to people right away?
yeah. I just understand what it takes to close a deal, right? So we're really good at our sales process. So most people
Mhm.
think like, oh, if it's a numbers game. Numbers is the language of business, right? So I
Mhm.
know that it takes me this many Facebook leads to get a deal. So I
Yeah.
understand how much money it takes me to market on Facebook to actually convert to a deal. Versus
Mhm.
like, oh, I spent like, $2,000 on Facebook and nothing really happened. I only got like, like our Facebook cost per lead is like $20,
Okay.
right? So like $20 versus Google's like 120. You know what I mean? So you got to understand it's going to be a cheaper lead, but it's just going to take more leads to convert to a contract. So we've had success with it, but you have to understand how like know your numbers, so that way you
Mhm.
can make your budget make sense. That's how you build a predictable, scalable business. Hey, I
Yeah.
understand $20 a lead, so I need to spend this many $1,000s to get this many leads because this many leads gets me this many contracts.
Yeah. Yep. What for you? What are those kind of numbers across those platforms? Facebook, YouTube,
Yeah.
Google PPC.
I don't know how many contracts it is exactly off the top of my head, but our number per lead is like 20. So we spend about $4,000. So that gave us a 200 leads per month, right? So it's not nearly as bad as like cold calling. Like cold calling is like 1 out of 50, 60, 70 leads
Yeah.
to try and get a deal, right? If you're really good. Like those are real numbers if you're really good. If you're not so good, it's gonna be like 100, right? So people educate themselves, but they don't have a real business to understand these numbers. They heard someone else say it, so that's what they say. It's
Hmm.
actually a lot more for cold calling. Facebook, we were probably getting like 1 out of 35. We're kind of because there's a lot of junk in there.
Uh,
Um,
yeah, use lead forms. You get a lot of junk. Yeah.
Especially on Facebook, so the quality of lead is much lower. But one of my friends is really killing it. My man Sterling, I feel like he gets like 1 out of 10 on Facebook. He's always posting this. I don't know. He runs his own ads, so I think
Mm,
he just has a better way of doing it. But for
yeah.
us, we've got a lot of rural stuff on Facebook. Like that's a lot of what we get because the
Mm,
people that are on Facebook filling out the forms are just usually a little more uneducated and older. So
mm,
they live out in the middle of nowhere in the country, right? Versus Google. I mean, I feel like the person that's Googling this is a little more sophisticated. And
yeah.
then so that's why that lead is a little bit better. So, we're getting about 200 leads, and I'd say maybe like 5 or 6 of those turn into contracts, and then probably half of those close.
Yeah. So you're 200 leads a month from Facebook alone, or that's across the
Facebook.
inbound channel?
That was
Facebook.
Facebook. Yep.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Well,
So
you can pick when people put a marketing budget aside. So the most we ever spent on marketing in a month was like 25 grand.
yeah.
And we just we depicted it between Facebook, Google, skip tracing, and YouTube, right? So
Mm,
between those four, we just took our 25 grand and divvied it up, and then watched like basically a 5-way split test on which ones
yeah.
performed the best.
Yep. So you said you're at 1 in 20 for Google PPC and 1 in 35 for Facebook leads to a contract.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, about that. It might be like 18 or something like that, but yeah, 20 basically.
yeah.
Yeah. A
Okay.
lot of people say they're like 1 in 10 and 1 in 7 and all that. And I'm like, come
Yeah.
on, man, you guys are
Come
killing.
on.
You guys are killing it.
They're excluding all their competitors that are filling out their form. So,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, people, you know,
that's not bad. I mean, 1 in 35 on Facebook. I mean, if they're $20 a pop, that's phenomenal. I mean, that's
yeah,
amazing.
your cost per lead is gonna be way down. So if you're looking to have like a cheaper budget, Facebook works for you. If you're not trying to do like with some of my friends, they just want to make 10 grand a month wholesaling. So like that's
Yeah.
good. They're
Yeah.
just gonna do Facebook and it's cheap and they can take their time and they can nurture their leads. And some of my friends want to do 200 a month. So I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, Facebook ain't for you. Like,
Right.
you need to be on YouTube and Google and freaking local.
Yeah. And then that's also nationwide? Everything is nationwide. Or
Yeah,
well, within your
your
city.
cost per lead is going to be lower. This is something
Yeah.
I learned from just running these ads with different agencies. Like your cost per lead is just going to be way lower if you run it nationwide model versus local.
Yeah.
That's why you can buy the lead. If it's like just one lead at a time, it's gonna be $400. But
Yeah.
and that's normal because if you were just running it locally, your cost per lead would be probably like $300. To be honest with
Yeah. 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 You're trying to fit it into a narrower box so they bid you up on
because you're
the
competing with everything else that's local.
yeah. And then YouTube, what are you guys seeing as conversion rates on YouTube?
Similar to Google, similar to
Yeah.
Google.
Yeah.
Yeah, but normally on YouTube, it seems like the houses have higher ARVs than on Google for some reason. Like I get more California, I get more like West
Huh.
deals than I do with Google. Just looking at I get a lot of California on YouTube.
Really? I
Hmm
wonder why that is.
I have no
Interesting.
idea. This is just for me looking at hundreds of
Yeah.
leads, and I'm like, what? On Google, I barely get anything in California. On
Right.
YouTube, man, I'm like, man, every like 10th deal is in California. Like, what? I don't even want to do deals in California, and I got to call these people. And I'm like, can I get some more Texas leads? Like,
Right. I mean, I guess, hey,
yeah,
if they're working out and you're making money on them,
for
is it that
sure.
bad?
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I'm here for it, but I just like, I'd rather be able to flip the house.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, California is just too difficult to
It's
flip
just
the
not
house.
it's not where I do deals. It's just not where I do deals. I
Yeah.
don't have contractors there. You know what I mean? Like it's just not. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your goal for all the sections of your business this year?
You know, I had these goals that I wrote down at the beginning of the year, and I don't know if they're gonna be more or less, just because we've restructured. Like we decided we wanted to flip more houses in the last like 3 weeks. So
Mm,
I probably need to sit down and like rewrite some of these goals out because we had a
yeah.
whole plan to just wholesale and do some flips,
Hmm.
and then as the market changed, right? Like any other business owner that's doing this, we're like, hey, like we're not going to be able to wholesale 25 deals a month like we thought we were. Right? So we probably should flip some houses or keep some of these. So like
Yeah.
I don't know what the to answer your question, I don't know. And I don't really like making like super long term goals in this industry because
Right.
except for when we buy houses. Like I want to buy probably like 10, 15 houses this year at least.
Yeah.
Like minimum. But as far as like flips, I just loosely say 50, right? And for
Yeah.
wholesale, I don't know. We're just going to wholesale anything we don't want to keep. So
Right. Yeah. And you said the market shift made you choose to flip more. Could you just elaborate on that a little more?
yeah, people stopped buying all the wholesale deals at the prices that we had them at. So even some of the deals that we were wholesaling, we were getting kind of squeezed on assignments.
Mm,
Just the ARVs kind of went down a little bit, and some people just backed off and stopped buying. Like the hedge fund, they just don't buy any houses right now. So I'm like, or they
yeah.
want them at 75%. I'm like, I'll just flip it.
Right. I'll
Like,
buy it at
so
that price. Yeah.
I'll buy. I would also buy it at 75%. Thanks. Right? Like,
Yeah. No,
so
no 14-day inspection either. So, yeah.
I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. So I looked at the deals and I'm like, why don't we just, there's always retail buyers.
Yeah.
Always. There's
Mm,
always going to be retail buyers as long as we're doing deals in places where people want houses. Like, it's not going to stop. So we just narrowed it down and picked a few markets that we want to flip in so that we could still keep our volume rolling, right? And just do deals in places where people actually want houses.
yeah, for sure. What else have you changed in your business with the market shift of the last, let's call it 6, 7 months?
Um, we went from like, so I was in the army for 13 years, right? So we went from like an army of people to just like some ninjas because I started training really hard with my people because I didn't need to play a volume game. I needed to get better, right? So it was
Hmm.
like before we just call as many people as possible because we can just sell all these deals. Well,
Hmm.
that's not the case right now. Like you can call
Yeah.
all people you want. Some people just ain't selling right now because they can't afford to buy another house. The rates keep people out of houses, whatever. So you need to be more strategic about who you're calling. So I've just really put my focus on training my sales team to just be
Mm.
some ninjas where they're just like you don't even know they're just stealing in slow motion and slicing and dicing these deals apart. So that changed for me. I just really leaned into more leadership and training in the
Yeah.
last 4 months instead of more just like how can we onboard, how can we get more data, how can we more robust. It's like no, let's get more focused, trim the fat, and that's across the board. That's across the board. I was just in Nashville. I'm in Boardroom Mastermind, and all the wholesalers and house flippers are saying the same thing. So I'm like, okay, cool. It isn't just me that's like, let's
Yeah.
freaking tighten this up some. Let's trim the fat. Let's figure out who the losers are. Let's keep the winners. All right. Like it wasn't just me. So I was excited to hear everybody else saying the same things. I was like, man,
Yeah.
this is kind of rough.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough to run a 20, 25 person wholesaling operation in a market
Yeah.
like this. It doesn't pencil. It just doesn't work.
Nope. So yeah, that's what I've done. I'm just more in on how can I make my team of like, I got 4 closers. How can I get 2 more? I want more closers. And how can I
Mm.
make them just like way better? Like way
Yeah.
better. Where they're just like an extension of myself instead of like, let me just get them through some training, make them pretty good enough to close some deals. And some guys are going to be really good and some guys will be all right. How can I
Yeah.
get like 6 really good people that are going to smash the phones, get multiple contracts, overcome every single objection, have the objections tattooed to their biceps to where they just know every time what they're going to say. They just look right at it and they already know what to say. Right? They
Yeah.
just know what to say every single time. So that's my goal right now. Is just to get all
Yeah.
my closers just on the same page, saying the same stuff.
Yeah. Are you in office in Texas, or are you guys all virtual as a team as well?
Everybody's virtual. So I used to live in Lawton, Oklahoma, like a month ago, 2 months ago, maybe now it's going on 2 months. So when I moved, we just like in this house. I don't even have like my office is kind of set up. Like I just got like a desk that I wanted yesterday. It's one of these ones that like raises up. See that?
Yep.
I
I got it.
yeah, I was like, I want to get me like a cool desk. I want to get my TV mounted. Like I'm still working on like this house office thing. So before we start signing leases and getting people in house, I'm like, let me settle into Fort Worth and get my name known a little bit more here, so that
Mhm.
we start having some more overhead. It actually makes sense instead of just
Yeah.
jumping in. Like, give me an office. Everybody needs to be in here. We
Yeah.
train on Zoom every morning for 2 hours and then get to it.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about sales management and getting those guys to the next level. I mean, I know you do the morning trainings, but like,
Yeah.
what else are you doing from a sales management perspective to really, really drive results?
Yeah, it's really difficult, especially when you're not in person, right? The in person model works great, and that's where we're gonna go. That's 100% where we're gonna go. But in the meantime, the way you keep people motivated virtually, we have like a company lounge where we share wins inside of like a Google chat. So we'll go in there and hey, so and so got a contract. Like today, when someone gets a contract, we put it in the company lounge, and then we just drive fire emojis like crazy in that thing.
Yeah.
Right? Some way to feel fired up, or guys have like a gong or like a spin the wheel or whatever. Like it's hard to do that virtually, so everybody can
Yeah.
still feel fired up. You feel a lot like work when you're just sitting here by yourself. So we do
Mm.
stuff like that. We've taken some classes on how to manage people virtually really well.
Mm.
Couple different couple different people because coming from like mid level management in the army, I
Mm.
wasn't able to like hire people and fire people. So I was good at mid level management, but onboarding and then offboarding, I had no idea. People give me a soldier, I got to keep this dude. Like I can't fire him, right? Like, and I didn't hire him either. They just gave me this kid. They're like, hey, this is your new
Right.
kid. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right. And I was once that new kid, just getting put in a place. Like, all right, I work for this dude. Like, and then you can't fire anybody. So
Yeah.
I've only been out of the army, by the way, for like 6 months, and
Oh, wow.
so it's been a cool transition learning how to onboard and fire folks and stuff correctly. Because before I didn't onboard people
Yeah.
at all. Hey, that dude's a hustler. He can work with us. And like, yeah, you want to be on the phones? Like, that
Yeah.
is
Right.
not how to do this, dude. Like,
No.
but we did it. We did it, and we had some success with that. But it's not the right way to do things.
Yeah. What were you mentioned some courses about learning to manage people virtually. Is it real estate specific or just kind of general or?
No, so we I took a 2 day course with some friends of mine that are also in boardroom, Tiff and Josh High, out of Columbus.
Oh,
We flew in and took their 2 day workshop, and it's badass, dude. Like I
yeah.
loved it. I can't recommend it enough. So if you're looking to figure out how to hire, fire, manage people, and you don't have like a lot of experience, that is a great 2 day workshop to go to in Columbus, Ohio, with some of my friends up there.
Yeah. You're like the fourth person who's told me that. That's a great thing.
I love
Yeah.
it. I'm from Cleveland originally, so like flying to Columbus, I was like, sweet, let's talk to my Ohio folks. We OH, it's like
Yeah.
it's all good. Yeah, I love those dudes.
That's awesome, man. Well, I know we're getting close to time here, but one thing I think you wanted to touch on, and I should have brought this up earlier, is just kind of how family life has played into your role as a real estate investor. Do you want to talk about that a little bit because it's not a topic that people talk about a lot.
Dude, man, I love sharing this part because it means a lot to me. A lot of people are going to make a lot of money. We all figured out how to get financial freedom, and it's not always the easiest ride, but we still know we're going the right way, right?
Hmm.
So it's inevitable that we're going to be 7 figure earners, 8 figure earners. That's how I like to start this out. But if you ask yourself, are you an 8 figure father? Are you an 8 figure husband? Are you an 8 figure friend? Like when people talk about you after you leave the room, do they talk about you in an 8 figure manner? Or are you just worth $1 to people? Right. So, don't take it for granted, the people that are in your life, because it's so much more than to business than just making money. All right. I love the
Hmm.
relationships. I love over delivering to people. And I love sharing that message of being, the 8 figure father and husband.
Yeah. Is there anything that you do on like a daily or weekly basis to keep in that mindset or to make sure that you continue?
Yeah. Anytime I do like for instance, a podcast here, right?
Yeah.
Not that I took any time away from my family, but I go, okay, I just like kicked it with Mike for an hour. Like I needed to go hang out with my wife now, right? Or
Right.
I'll work really hard till like 8 p.m. and I'm tired, and I go, No, you're not. You don't give them the rest of you. You give them the best of you, right? So
Mhm.
don't just come out here and be like, oh, I'm kind of tired. It's 9 o'clock. Like yesterday, I worked till after 8, and then my wife was sitting out there with the baby. I'm like, hey, let's go out, get some food, like do something. Let's go do something instead of just like me be tired here on the couch. And boom, we
Yeah.
went out. We had a little date night. And we hung out and we came back, and it was all good. And it kind of just resets the resets the we haven't been out in a week type of thing. It's like
Right. Yeah.
yeah. So I like making sure that I do that type of stuff. I just ask myself, how can I be a better dad today? How can I be a better husband today?
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, not just how can I make more money today.
Yeah. That's the third question, but well, man. So I know we're almost out of time here, but always two questions that we have at the end. First one's
Yeah.
kind of fun. Um, what is the craziest or most uncomfortable situation that you have ever experienced with the seller?
Oh, dude, it was my first deal. What's funny is my first deal I bought from a wholesaler. It was a wholesale deal. So I bought it
Mhm.
from not my first bird deal, my first like what I thought was going to be like my first like investor deal as a
Mhm.
wholesaler. I bought it from a wholesaler and I saw the margins on it. I was like, man, this guy's got this thing marked down. I can just buy this and list it, right?
Mhm.
So I bought it from him and I borrowed the money and I listed it, and the guy had a lease back in the house, and he decided we had a $5,000 hold on his cash, and he
Mhm.
just didn't leave. I collected all $5,000, and he still wouldn't leave. So I was trying to get this guy out of the property, and I'm like, "Hey man, like you sold the house." He's like, "My sister sold it. I didn't agree." He's got all these excuses why he won't leave my house, and I'm like, dude, and nobody will buy it because
Yeah.
he said they're going over there, and he's like, I ain't leaving. I'm just like,
Not a
so
good
I'm
marketing
I'm just
strategy.
eating the heart like the private money costs, because I borrowed on like a daily basis because I'm like thinking I'm gonna hold this house for like a week. So I'm holding this thing for like I'm on month 3. Like, I gotta get rid of this house, and I had already taken all $5,000 of his money. So
Yeah.
finally, I found a buyer, but he's like, it still has to be delivered vacant. So I was like, I got to get out of this house. So I called that guy. He's like a real tough guy the whole time. He just started crying and breaking down with me, and and I ended up giving that dude $2,000 of his money back just to get him going because I don't think he got any money from the sale. And so I gave him
Wow.
like 2 G's back, and I made like 2 G's, or the only money I made was a 3 grand from the holdback on the
Wow.
property because he got it. He was in worse condition when he finally got out of there.
Right.
Uh, I got rid of this property. My private money lender made more money on the deal than me, but like he was crying and sobbing and weeping. And I felt so bad for this dude, and I just needed to get out of the money. I just gave him 2 grand of his money back and got the deal done. And I was like,
Wow.
man, this is crazy.
That is crazy. Well, at least you didn't lose money, right? I mean,
That was my first deal that wasn't a burr.
yeah, that's hilarious, man. So final question is, if you could go back in time and talk to yourself when you were looking for your first deal, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself if you could tell yourself one thing?
Yeah, keep paying that $100 to people. Um, Because people. I had a crazy story to being in the army and like, being in Germany. Like I probably could have called a lot more people, and people would have helped me just because of my situation and where I was at. Like how cool would it? Yeah, I'm helping this guy in Germany buy houses. Like people want to do cool stuff like that, but I didn't know that at the time.
Mhm.
So I would say that, and then just buy more houses in 2020 because you
Yeah,
make a lot more money. So yeah, I say continue to educate yourself, and don't be in such a rush.
cool. Well, Naaman, if people want to reach out to you, if they have questions or maybe they want to JV a deal with you, how can they go about doing that?
Yeah, at Naaman Taylor Investor on Instagram. And then you can go to my website, thenaamantaylor.com. Just get in touch, and we can talk about doing JVs, anything you need, man. I love helping people. So whatever you need, you can book a free call with me, 30 minutes. We can just talk over what it is that you need. I do that all the time with people just to give back. So anybody want to book a free call, just go in there, send me a DM. It'll send you like an auto message. You can book a free call with us.
Sweet. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for being on the show. It was great.
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you, brother.